Just how good is the 2026 Dynasty Rookie class looking? We're talking about that in today's video. As always, guys, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, help us get to 1,400 subscribers. We're talking 2026 rookies. We're still, just under a year from the 2026 draft happening. Obviously, we have an entire 2025 college season to happen, and that's going to change a lot of things. But it's never too early to start looking into the future, the 26 to 27 classes, seeing if you should invest in it, if it's going to be good, if it's going to be average, especially if you're a team that maybe is looking to not really compete in 2025. Now, these are top five at each position, each fantasy relevant position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. These are not my top five rankings. These are the top five from Mock Draft Database. If you don't know what Mock Draft Database is, it's a website. It's a database that compiles a bunch of different mock drafts, big boards, team-based mock drafts, from reputable sources, and kind of puts together, okay, these are the top five according to these 80 big boards or these 80 different mock drafts. And we're starting out the quarterback position. We're starting off maybe a little bit of surprise for people is Garrett Nussmeier here, the LSU quarterback. You see the 2025 numbers there, over 4,000 yards passing, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He's currently the consensus QB1 and the consensus number one overall player on the big boards that were compiled. And, he went back to college. He's going back for his fifth year at LSU, but he didn't really play at LSU until last year. Last year was his first year starting the entire year. Obviously, he was playing behind Jaden Daniels there for a couple of years. What's interesting about Nussmeier, and we're not going to go too deep on these prospects because I'm still very much at the surface level of scouting these guys. I've watched a couple of games from all these guys on this list, but I'm definitely, not planting my flag on any guys necessarily and saying they're going to be good or bad. And a lot can change over this 25 season. But what's interesting with him is that people were talking about him potentially coming out of this into the 25 draft class and thinking that he could be a riser and potentially maybe he could have been the QB2 or QB3 in this 25 draft class. Obviously, we'll never know if that was going to be the case. But going back to college, he's an interesting one. He has a smaller frame for a typical quarterback, 6'2", 200, 205. So usually we like to see our quarterbacks at like 225, 230 or around that, and 6'5", 6'6". But he has the arm talent. When you watch him play, he definitely has the arm talent, that you would expect from a guy that is like 6'5", 230. He can kind of make all the throws, and I think he has a very good chance at kind of maintaining this high draft stock and being a top 10 pick in next year's draft. We'll see if that's going to happen. He's not very mobile. He's not very mobile at all. He doesn't have, I think he had negative rushing yards because they count sacks towards you and things like that. But we'll see how Garrett Nussmeier looks in the 2025 college season. At number 2 here, we have Arch Manning. And I think a lot of people expected him to be number 1. He's currently number 2, according to Mock Draft Database and those, those big boards. And it kind of makes sense because we need to see more from him. He's thrown 95 passes in his career, and most of that came last year. And so, like, we haven't even seen the guy throw 100 pass attempts yet. We need to see him as the starting quarterback over the entire year, the ups and downs of his college season and how he handles it. He could very well be the number 1 pick. He has the name. People in Dynasty are already excited about him. He already has more value than any other quarterback in whatever draft class he comes out of because of the name Manning. And whether that's fair or not, that's just how it is. There's a lot of things that influence dynasty value. It's not just how he performed on the field. It's the perception of you. And the perception of him is he has the last name Manning. Now, I actually think there's a very good chance he doesn't even come out in the 26 class. Actually, if I had to bet, I would bet that he would go back and stay at Texas, especially with NIL money. Unless he has an amazing year. I think he's going to take a couple years at Texas, maybe wants to win a national championship, wants to really refine his game to make sure he's in the best position to succeed in the NFL. So if I had to guess, he's not going to declare, but we're still going to talk about him as a potential in this draft class because, well, the potential is there that he does come out, and the potential is there that he's the number one overall pick next year. Arch Manning, of course, out of Texas, excited, really, really excited to see him play. Has a little bit more of that traditional size compared to Garrett Nussmeier and, the 6'4", 230, 225, can move a little bit. He's a mobile guy. So excited to see him play in 2025. At the QB3 position, number 4 overall on the consensus big boards is Cade Klubnik. I think it's pronounced Klubnik, out of Clemson. Cade Klubnik here. You see the 2025 stats. He's pretty intriguing to me because I like the mobility that he has. I don't think he's this elite runner, but he's mobile. He's not a statue in the pocket, which so many quarterbacks now that come out, they seem to all have some mobility to some extent. Has a couple of years of under his belt already as a starting quarterback, is going to get a third one. So he's going to have plenty of experience as a senior. And I hope to kind of see the next progression for him and take that next step into what he needs to be to kind of maintain this potentially high draft slot that he's going to go at. He also has kind of size frame issues. He's 6'2", 210. Again, these quarterbacks can succeed. It doesn't size. I think what we've learned about the NFL, it's changed enough to where size isn't the be all end all as much as it used to be. It used to be like, if you're a receiver under this height, if you're a quarterback under this height, you're never going to succeed. But the game has changed, and it's kind of opened it up into these type of guys. But he's another mobile guy. Yes, the frame could be a little bit of an issue. I think he has a very good deep ball. I just want to see a little bit more consistency from him. Again, I'm no expert on these guys whatsoever. I will be as the season progresses and get better at having more a stronger opinion about them. But again, a lot it's going to depend on 2025. To me, it's looking at the previous year of the players that are coming out in the draft is the most valuable information you can get, not what they did necessarily 2 years ago, because it's more of who they are now, right? So, but yeah, I just want to see some consistency in his game a little bit. But I do think he's an interesting prospect and has definitely an ability to go top 10. Drew Allar from Penn State is the QB for. A lot of people talked about him coming out in 2025. I think people were a little bit surprised he didn't. At that point, he had 2 years under his belt as the starter. Drew Allar did at Penn State. He's super efficient. Like 2023, he threw 25 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Last year, 24 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Can also move a little bit. Has more of that traditional size, 6'5", 240. I don't know. I don't see it quite there yet with Drew Allar personally. I think he can be an average to above average quarterback. I don't know if he can be that top tier elite type of talent. And again, a lot of that's going to depend on how he progresses into 2025. He kind of, in my opinion, like, he didn't take a huge jump from his sophomore to junior year. I think he was maybe slightly better in some areas, but you want to see maybe a little bit bigger jump. So I'm hoping we see that in his senior year. And obviously he believes in himself that he can improve his draft stock, because I know a lot of people were kind of speculating that he was going to be a second round pick. I think I saw in early mock drafts, like in January, before we knew he was going back to school. And so, he obviously thinks he can improve that draft stock, and I hope he does. I really, really do hope he does. The last quarterback on the list we're talking about is Lenoris Sellers out of South Carolina. This guy is potential fantasy gold. Rushing quarterbacks are just so much more valuable than, and I'm talking about difference-making rushing guys. Like, if you rush for 350, 400 yards, that's really good, and that's great, and that's a nice little cherry on top of to whatever you're giving me with your arm. But I'm talking about guys that are going for 500-plus yards per game, per season, maybe reaching 700, maybe getting 5, 6, 7 rushing touchdowns. To me, Lenoris Sellers is the one out of these top 5 that has that type of potential in terms of fantasy running back. Now, the risk with all these guys is kind of like the Justin Fields risk, right? When he plays, we know he's good. What's his long-term future? Well, that's a little bit up in the air. So you still have to be able to play quarterback, but I think Lenore Sellers has a lot of traits here. He's a thick guy. He's 6'3", 240, 245. I think I saw somewhere 242, 240, 245. So he's thick. He's a dual threat type of guy. I think he's gonna run a pretty good combine and test pretty well at the combine. He's just some quarterbacks you watch and you're just like, yeah, that guy is just like a natural runner of the football when he runs, right? And that's not trying to say anything about his ability to throw the ball. It's more about when you see him run, it's like, oh yeah, this is like potentially special type of rushing ability. I do think he has really good arm talent, really good velocity on his balls. Especially like the guy can throw the ball 60 yards down the field. And so, and what I like is that he's not just looking to run all the time. He's keeping his eyes down the field. Just need a little bit more consistency. And that's to be expected for a guy who only has 1 year of experience as a starting quarterback. He's played at Penn State, South Carolina. Will be his 3rd year. He didn't do anything in 2023. In 2024, he threw for the 2,500 yards. So he only has 1 year as like a starter in college. So there's definitely, okay, let's see the next progression. And that's fair. That's fair to say with someone like Sellers, because it's like you can't expect these guys to look like NFL talents after just 1 year. The potential is obviously there. Into some running backs, the number one running back across basically everybody's boards is Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. To me, Jeremiah Love is someone that could be the 101 in rookie drafts, even in superflex leagues, kind of like Ashton Genty was this year, how Bijan Robinson was a couple of years ago. He's a potential first-round pick, as you can see in all rankings. So he's a potential number 1 overall pick. He is not as big as you would think, right? Like he's 6 foot, but he's like 205, 210. So he's not quite as big. He's fast. He has great contact balance. He produced in the passing game there, as you can see. 28 catches in college is pretty good for a running back, especially for a team like Notre Dame, who typically doesn't throw the ball as much. Just for reference here, 28 catches was good for 5th most on the team. So, their leading receiver was 43 catches, and then 592 yards. So he wasn't, too far off from being, he was a significant part of the passing game is what I'm getting at here. So he's kind of one of those guys that can take it to the house whenever he touches the ball. But he's also really good contact balance. Like he's not just a speed guy. He kind of has it all. And I think he's also a really good pass catcher. To me, he's almost the complete package. So we'll see how he looks in 2025. I hope he kind of just takes that next step and has like a huge season. He kind of carried Notre Dame there at the end of the year. Nicholas Singleton. I wrote Nick Singleton, but everywhere has him as Nicholas, so I need to double check if he even goes by Nick. But Nicholas Singleton out of Penn State. This is another guy that I'm super, super excited about, and I could see sneaking into the first round. He's 6 foot, 225, 230, but he, to me, can run in the 4.3s, potentially in the high 4.3s, low 4.4s. So he has like the size and speed combination, which is kind of ideally what you want, right? You want the big guys who can run fast. Like those are the gold. Those are the guys that can really smash in football and in fantasy football. And I think Nicholas Singleton could really, really do that. Great burst off the line. You can just see it. It jumps off the page, his burst when you watch him play. I think obviously 41 catches and over 375 yards. He's a good pass catcher. So I'm excited to see kind of this year for Singleton. He's been productive since he came in and started playing. Like as a freshman, he put up 1,150 total yards, 13 touchdowns. As a sophomore, he put up 1,050 total yards, 10 touchdowns. And then last year, of course, almost 1,500 yards and 17 touchdowns for Nicholas Singleton. Jonah Coleman is up next out of Washington. Jonah Coleman is another one of those guys who, he could probably, he's a kind of a fringe second, third round pick as of right now. Right. But he's more of a bowling ball than he is like, these first two guys are both 6 foot. one of them lighter than the other one. But Jonah Coleman is 5'9", but he's 230. So he basically, I think he weighs more than Nicholas Singleton, and he's a few inches shorter than him, which, he's essentially a bowling ball. He's not quite as fast as a guy like Singleton. I don't think he's quite as fast as a guy like Jeremiah Love, but he's fast enough. Wouldn't be surprised if he ran in the high 4.4s, low 4.5s, which is perfectly fine. You see some of the production there for him in 2024 was pretty productive there. And he spent a couple of years at Arizona and has been, and then Washington last year and this year, and has been productive his last 2 years. So it's great to see. A lot to like about him, the compact bowling ball type of size. Like, it's just like he's always falling forward. The guy is always falling forward. He's low to the ground and he's built like a tank, right? And particularly when you see him run kind of zone run schemes, inside or outside zone, he seems to excel in that type of system for sure. Kind of like a Caleb Johnson did at Iowa, where you can kind of get away with not being quite as fast because in the zone run scheme, you kind of moving with the offensive line until you find that hole open up. And so if you're patient, you can, and you have good burst, like you can be a home run threat, even if you don't have 4.3 speed. He doesn't have that top gear. And how many times is he going to run it for 80 yards? Not a lot, but also not a lot of people run for 80-yard touchdowns anyway. So I'm excited about Jonah Coleman. I'm excited about a lot of these running backs, to be honest. As I am for the next one, McKee Hughes. I'm pretty sure it's pronounced McKee. I looked at the Tulane pronunciation guide and it said it as McKee. So I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but played at Tulane for a couple of years, is now going to Oregon. So good chance we could just see kind of like video game numbers out of him, because that's how Oregon runs their offense. They put up huge numbers. But this guy has been incredibly productive for Tulane his first 2 years. As a freshman, 1,450 total yards, 7 touchdowns. As a sophomore, almost 1,600 total yards, 17 touchdowns. I'm excited to see what he does at Georgia. He's a little bit more of like the traditional running back in terms of the size that you think. Like, guys above 225 are kind of bigger guys. Guys below 210 are kind of smaller guys. We usually think of like 5'10", 215. That's like when I think of running back size, that's like the size that I go to. And that's about what he is. 5'11", 210, 215, has good speed. Limited work in the as a receiver out of the backfield. That could just be Tulane's offense. He has 30 catches over his first 2 years. So nothing crazy. But I think he is a very good player. I'm excited to see him in that Oregon offense. And he's another one of these guys where like he takes on contact, which I'd love to see out of running backs. And he seems to turn like what should be a 3 or 4 yard pickup into a 6 or 7 or 8 yard pickup. And that's how you really start to rack up yards. So McKee Hughes, previously of Tulane, going to Oregon. Keep an eye on him, because to me, he is a guy that can really move off the board and be solidify himself as maybe like a top 3-4 running back in this draft class. And then we have Katron Allen out of Penn State, another Penn State running. Like the numbers these Penn State guys put up are kind of nutty, really. Another guy that's kind of like, can he sneak into the third round? Is he maybe a day 3 pick? We'll see. He's obviously going to be sharing the backfield a little bit with a guy like Nicholas Singleton. Katron Allen is, but he's still going to put up numbers. Now he is a little bit more like, he's another big guy. He's 5'11", 230. He's definitely, when you watch him play, out of these 5 running backs, he's definitely a step slower than these other guys. I wouldn't be surprised if he runs like a mid. I'd be surprised if he's much faster than a low 4.5. I think he's going to run like a mid 4.5 to maybe even like a 4.57, kind of like a Caleb Johnson ran this last year. Could be wrong about that, but that's kind of where I see him. If he gets into the like a 4.5, 1 or 2, then I think that's like, I think that's going to be really good for him. But he kind of makes up for that with like patience, right? The patience behind the line, powerful, thick, doesn't go down with with first contact very much. The home run long speed is not quite going to be there. Don't see a whole lot of him as a great pass catcher as well. Again, could just be a little bit of they use, a guy like Nicholas Singleton a little bit more in the pass catching game, but he does have 52 catches over his first 3 years. Another guy that's just been productive. Going into his fourth year at Penn State, he put up 1,050 total yards, 11 touchdowns as a freshman, almost 1,000 total yards, 7 touchdowns as a sophomore, and then over 1,250 total yards and 10 touchdowns as a junior. So just productive from year one, which I do really love to see. I do hear a lot of people kind of downplaying this draft class a little bit and kind of looking at the quarterbacks and running backs. I'm especially the quarterbacks in particular. All you really need for a draft class to be good is for one position to be incredibly deep at it. Obviously, ideally, we want a good balance across the board, but if one position is really deep, it makes the draft class good, even if some of the other positions are lacking. Just like last year. And in 2025, we kind of came into originally back in like December, middle of the college football season. It was kind of like, 2025 Dynasty draft class, not so great, except for the running back. So what did that do? All these running backs, and it was deep at running back, pushed good receivers, solid receivers into the middle of the second round, and it created a lot of value. So like all you need to do is be incredibly deep at one position. That's going to push wide receivers or running backs or tight ends down the board, and you're going to be excited about your second round pick. So I could see this draft class being a lot better than what we're currently expecting. Now with the wide receivers, there's no clear cut type of like top 10 guy as of right now. Last year there was with Ted McMillan around this time last year was considered to be a top 10 pick. Luther Burden was also up there. Obviously Burden fell. Ted did go in the top 10. Before that, it was Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors and stuff like that. As of right now, we don't really have that clear cut. This is going to be a top 10 pick. Maybe it's like from, the JSN year or something like that. But Jordan Tyson is the consensus number one wide receiver, 18th overall. So kind of right around where Jordan Addison went as the number one wide receiver a few years ago. You see the numbers there, 75 catches, 1,100 yards, and 10 touchdowns for ASU last year. And Jordan Tyson is a intriguing prospect. He's not my favorite wide receiver as of right now. We'll get to that in just a second, but 6'1", 195. I think he's going to probably thrive more in that outside X type of spot. Decent speed, like it's not blazing speed. It's not slow. It's kind of above average, right? Above average speed. Really love how fluid he is. And like when you watch him kind of go up against some of these cornerbacks sometimes, like you can see like they're kind of put, they're kind of putting that blender a little bit, and with his fluidity and his really, really good in kind of those middle intermediate level routes. Like I really like to see him. He kind of just like dominates those intermediate routes and stuff like that. Does have some injury concerns. Had a knee injury in 2022, collarbone injury in last year, which is why I think we didn't see him, if I remember correctly. We didn't see him for the I forget if we saw him for the, I don't think we did see him for the college football playoffs is what I'm getting at. I couldn't get that word out, but so we really only have like 1 year really of production from him. And so really curious to see like how he kind of progresses from that junior to senior year. And if he kind of takes that next step. Antonio Williams is probably my favorite wide receiver as of right now for Clemson. Antonio Williams out of Clemson, a little bit more of, 15, 20 years ago, like as a wide receiver, you almost, the guys that were going first round were never below a certain height. You had to be at least this height to be a first round pick and stuff. And that's obviously changed a lot. Now, of course, there's always exceptions, but that's changed a lot. He's more of like the 5'11", sub 200. That's what Antonio Williams is, which is, we're seeing that doesn't really matter in the NFL if the offenses are creative with you and use you all over the field and get you open. I really like Antonio Williams a lot. Like I think he's going to run a really good 40. I think he just, like, the guy's just always open. You just watch him whenever he's making a catch, like he's just literally always open. He can be a weapon in the return game. His spatial awareness and finding the holes in the zone are incredible, in my opinion. I am a sucker for route runners and guys that, to me, are just like always getting open, because I feel like that translates the best to the NFL. So Antonio Williams to me is my favorite wide receiver. I could see him being a first round pick pretty easily here. Denzel Boston out of Washington is third on the consensus. Again, this is not my rankings. It's the consensus big board as of right now. Denzel Boston out of Washington. Again, going into his fourth year at Washington, didn't really see much until last year. He's a little bit more of the typical, traditional wide receiver type of size, the 6'4", 209 type of guy. Is probably going to thrive on the outside. He's going to, doesn't have amazing speed, but has good enough speed. Contested catches is like the guy's insane at contested catches. So don't love I just generally like the players that I feel like there's not a lot of burst off the line of scrimmage. I'm not huge fans of the change of direction. I love seeing like the really elite, kind of like a Garrett Wilson. Like he's a little bit taller and stuff like that. He's maybe not quite as big as a guy like Boston and stuff, but in terms of just like, man, that like you watch Garrett Wilson change direction, like it's violent. A guy like Boston, it just feels like it kind of like takes a second to load, So, he's currently projected as like a fringe first, second round pick. So a couple Washington guys here that are intriguing, but we'll see how it progresses. So as of right now, though, as you can see, the lack of maybe elite talent in this wide receiver class as of now, we only see 2 wide receivers in the consensus first round, in this consensus top 32 on the big board right now. So that's a little concerning, but that's kind of how it was last year too. Carnell Tate out of Ohio State, another guy that could easily sneak into the first round as well. Just another Ohio State wide receiver. These guys are going to be coming each and every year. They just are, right? He's not going to, he had a lot of competition last year, still put up good numbers, 50 catches, 733 yards, did Carnell Tate here. And he's going to continue to have this type of competition because it's just Ohio State is just ridiculous, right? Like the guy, it's just a wide receiver factory at this point. He's definitely not the best wide receiver on his team. Jeremiah Smith is 2027. Pay attention. Mecca Ibuka was obviously on the team last year, and Carnell Tate was kind of that third consistent option. It was these 3 guys that were really the focal point of the Ohio State passing offense. So we'll see what Carnell Tate does. Again, he's going to get an opportunity to kind of be like the Robin to the Batman there for Jeremiah Smith. And, he kind of dominated in the Texas game in the semifinals of the college football playoffs. Not dominate, but he was really good in that game. So my concern with him is going to be his speed. I'm not 100% sure. I've seen rumors of him maybe running in the high 4.5s. Which is concerning because he's not like a heavy big guy. He's 6'3", 190-ish, right around there. So like he is a good route runner, which again, I'm generally a fan of, but that speed is always going to be a little bit of a concern because like everything gets harder in the NFL, right? So you want to have all the tools, right? You want to have the route running and good speed and size and all this stuff. If you have it all, you get elite wide receivers. Obviously not everyone has it all, but he does have the route running, but the speed is going to be a little bit concerning for him. And then the last wide receiver here on the list, the wide receiver 5 overall 42 is Eric Singleton Jr., who is transferring to Auburn. He's transferring to Auburn. So he played at Georgia Tech. So 5'11", 190. Pretty productive at Georgia Tech, and I'm going to double check like what Georgia Tech was kind of doing here. But back-to-back years as a freshman and a sophomore, 700 over 700 receiving yards, over 750 this last year, 6 touchdowns as a freshman, 3 touchdowns last year, and I would reckon that is probably the highest on Georgia Tech. Yeah. So Georgia Tech, they threw for 3,000 yards, 17 touchdowns. So they weren't this huge, passing offense or anything like that. Eric Singleton was definitely their best wide receiver, and he has been over their last couple of years. In fact, they in 2023, they only threw for 2,900 yards and 27 touchdowns. So just incredibly productive on a team that, to me wasn't very good in terms of their passing offense and things like that. But he's a blazer. The dude is fast. Like if anyone's going to be the fastest player in the draft class, fastest wide receiver in this upcoming draft class, it's going to be Eric Singleton Jr. To me, he's going to run in the mid to low 4.3s. So be prepared for that. Dude is a blazer. And so obviously that's going to always be attractive for NFL teams. So you put it all together, right? You're blazing fast, but you can also, to me, he has really good hands, really good at kind of like, getting that ball out of the air, even when he's like running really, really fast. So I think he could have a season where he kind of explodes. Depends on what Auburn and their offense does and all of that. But there's always going to be concerns with these guys. Can they beat press coverage and NFL type of caliber players? That's always going to be concerned. But Eric Singleton Jr., to me, he could have a huge leap because of the speed, man. The speed aspect is so coveted. Like guys like Tutu Atwell go in the second round because of their speed, right? And so, like, if he can kind of take that next step, like he could easily be a first rounder, and I wouldn't be shocked. Into the tight ends we go. And the number one tight end, currently consensus number one, is Kenyon Sadiq. Again, I looked at pronunciation guides. Sometimes it's hard to remember, but pretty sure it's Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. Is the number one tight end. Now, we don't have, like, the last couple of years, we've been kind of spoiled with, like, obviously Brock Bowers a couple of years ago, like, before the college football season, we knew Brock Bowers was going to be, a first-round pick. We also were Colston Loveland was considered to be a first-round pick before the 2024 college football season. We don't have that right now with Kenyon Sadiq here, again, out of Oregon. So, good, decent numbers. Just like the dude is an athlete. He has the size. He's 6'3", 245, I believe. So he can kind of play in line. He can play in the slot. I think he's going to be his numbers are really going to take a step up because he's going to be more of a focal point of the offense. I don't want to spend too much time on the tight ends necessarily, but to me, he's going to be a focal point of the offense. Obviously Terrence Ferguson was there last year. So even with Terrence Ferguson there, who we just saw Terrence Ferguson go in the second round, Sadiq was kind of right there. Like Ferguson had 600 yards, three touchdowns, and then Sadiq as the tight end 2 put up just over 300 yards, as you can see, and 2 touchdowns. So it should be more of a focal point with him. To me, he's just like the dude's an athlete, and like what's interesting about tight ends is like athletic. That's what the combine means the most, in my opinion, for tight ends. Like the athletic performance and production of a tight end really translates the most, rather than stats. Stats obviously matter too, but to me, he's elite athlete, explosive athlete, if I can speak, and he's a really good catcher too of the football. Like he has those hands. He doesn't have stone hands. So excited to see kind of what he does, and does he kind of break into the first round? He could. I'm not saying he can't, but we just don't have like a for sure lock first round pick tight end heading into the season. Eli Stowers. I forget if it's Stowers or Stowers, but out of Vanderbilt. I remember looking at him a little bit because I thought he was going to potentially come out this last year. He is a tweener. He's a tweener if there ever was one. Like he is, I believe, not even 230, if I remember correctly. Tough to know exactly what their weight is as of right now. It's just a lot of stuff floating around. But he's a tweener. Like he was came into Texas A&M as a tight end, and then transitioned to quarterback. He played quarterback at New Mexico State, Conference USA, then went back to Vanderbilt. Like I think he was more of like an option type of quarterback, a running quarterback. But that just kind of shows you the type of like versatility or athlete that this guy is. So I think he went back to full-time tight end, had a good year last year, 50 for Vanderbilt, 50 catches, 638 yards. I would be shocked if that led Vanderbilt, who's just not a very good team. in everything, receptions, touchdowns, yards, everything. So I think probably he needs one more year to focus on the tight end craft. It's just going to be interesting to see where he goes. Like he could be a second round pick, he could be a sixth round pick because he's just more of that tweener. He doesn't really fit as a tight end, doesn't fit as a wide receiver. But man, if he can put it together as like a pass catching tight end, there's something here because man, he cannot block. The guy is not a blocker, especially in the run game. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see where Eli Stowers goes. Next up at the tight end, 3 spot, potential second, third round pick, day 2 pick here, Max. Pretty sure it's Clary. It's not just Claire. It's like Clary or Clara. You actually pronounce like the E there, but transfers to Ohio State, previously played at Purdue. Had a really good year last year. You see the numbers, the 50 catches, almost 700 yards, 4 touchdowns is going to Ohio State, which is, he has the opportunity, crowded receiving room and all of that, but he has an opportunity to really be in the national spotlight and see he's more of that traditional, in my opinion, more of an inline, but can also play the slot wide tight end, slot wide receiver, receiving tight end position. Next up, we have a Jack Endries transferring to Texas here. Also a guy that put up really good numbers for a tight end last year, over 55 catches, 600 yards, 2 touchdowns. That was at Cal that he did that, and he was productive as a freshman, which is kind of rare for a tight end to come in right away and just put up numbers. Like he was 35 catches, 400 yards for Cal as a freshman. Then last year he takes the next step. Now he's going to go to Texas, kind of following, we've had Texas tight ends drafted, I think, back-to-back years in the 4th round in Jatavian Sanders and Gunnar Helm. Sanders might have been a 5th round pick. But he's kind of following in that footstep of like, okay, here's the next tight end who should be able to come in and be the tight end 1 for Arch Manning. So excited to see where he goes. And then finally we have Joe Royer out of Cincinnati. Joy Royer here, and he is staying I can't say his name, Joe Royer, and I could be saying that last name wrong there, but another guy who he's going into his 5th year at Cincinnati, did nothing his first 3 years. He's going into his 5th year in college, first 3 years at Ohio State, and did nothing. They just didn't use him at Ohio State. He had 4 catches in 3 years at Ohio State. Obviously, always a lot of competition there and things like that. And then he transfers to Cincinnati, puts up a good year. Think he's going to have another good year for Cincinnati. So I'm excited to see kind of what happens with him. He's a big boy. He's like 6'5", 250, 260. So he is much more of that inline tight end, can kind of be used all over the field. Is he amazing, in terms of his receiving in any one area? Not necessarily, but like that combination of like, hey, he can actually block, and he's a good tight end, receiving tight end, like that can get him on the field from week 1. So overall, my thoughts about this 26 class is that we just need the quarterback position. To me, is really, really intriguing because there's a lot of guys that I didn't even mention in the quarterback position that could and are ranked like as like fringe first round picks. I'm going to pull it up right now, but there's a little bit of hype. There's a little bit of hype for guys like Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana. I'm going to butcher the last name, so I'm not going to say it. Nico, Tennessee quarterback who transferred to UCLA, could be a first-round pick. Sam Leavitt, I believe it is, at Arizona State. And we saw, a couple of Arizona State guys. Carson Beck as well. Like there's some guys that have, Avery Johnson out of Kansas State that also could kind of make their way into and have good years. So this could be like a really, really good quarterback class, especially if Arch Manning comes out. And, that could just make the whole class so much better in the super flex league because it's going to push all these other players down. We'll see how the wide receivers go and the tight ends go. But I think quarterback and running back in particular are going to be really good. So I don't mind investing in it. This time last year, people were very down in the 25 class. Turned out we loved it. So Anyways, appreciate everyone. We'll be keeping track of this. We'll probably put out one more video before the 2025 college football season starts, and then we'll kind of update this month to month throughout the season on keeping track of these guys and who's moving up and down. So make sure to like and subscribe and join the Discord, and I'll see you guys on the next video.